Chapter 1. The Day Before the Awakening. Part 1. A Typical Morning in Brinewatch. 5 celestial orbits earlier. Cycle 04, rotation 24, orbit 3448, AE, United Federation of Dravara. Coastal City-State of Ashport. Exterior District, SW9, Brinewatch. Dawn bled gray through the slats of the shanty walls, soft lines of light cutting across the dirt floor like scars. The air inside was thick with salt, mold, and the ever-present scent of decay. Kyle stirred beneath a frayed blanket, the straw mattress beneath him uneven and laced with the sting of poking ends. He didn't need a clock to know it was nearly 7. He'd memorized the way light hit the floorboards this time of morning. But already, sweat clung to his skin like a second shirt. The shack groaned around him, a skeleton of driftwood, rusted nails, and scavenged tin sheets barely holding together. Each gust from the sea rattled the warped frame, a reminder that even the house was trying to fall apart. A rust-streaked stove sat cold and silent in the corner, ringed by the ghosts of a dozen half-meals. A cracked table leaned on a crate, missing a leg, much like the rest of the neighborhood, crippled, but standing out of sheer stubbornness. Kyle pushed himself upright with a grunt, every joint in his wiry frame flaring in protest. He rubbed his shoulder absently as he looked across the room. His mother lay under a patchwork blanket barely thick enough to be called such. Elira Voran's breath came shallow, each inhale a wheeze, each exhale slower than the last. Her skin was pale, her once rich hair dulled by years of illness. Beside her, curled like a sleeping cat, was his sister. Sarah's limbs were too thin, her knees jutting through threadbare pajamas, but she slept peacefully, one small mercy the world still allowed. Cale rose slowly, barefoot on the packed earth, and moved to the cold stove. There was no firewood left, no kindling, no food to warm even if there was. Just another morning in Brinewatch. He was already thinking about Saltpier. Maybe Torv had something for him today. Gutting fish, unloading cargo, hauling rotted nets, anything. If luck played kind, maybe he'd come home with a coin or two. Maybe a fishtail, if Torv felt generous. Behind him, fabric rustled. Kale. Elira's voice was rough, paper dry, but warm. Still warm. Already up? He turned, forced a smile. Can't sleep when the tide's coming in. You should rest. She tried to sit up and failed the first time, her body curling around the effort. Not today. Tomorrow's your awakening. I want to see you off. From the corner, Sarah stirred. She blinked at him with sleepy eyes, then lit up like a lantern. It's tomorrow already? Kyle, you'll get a talent, right? A strong one? He crouched beside her, brushing her tangled hair. That's the plan. Something strong enough to chase the rats out of here. She giggled and hugged his arm, bony and light as a feather. Like fire? Or lightning? Or one of those floating powers? He chuckled, though it caught in his throat. Anything's better than nothing. But even as he said it, the doubt was there. Quiet and sharp. What if it was nothing? Not every kid got something useful. Some talents were weak, some were meaningless, and those kids stayed in Brinewatch forever. Elira's hand touched his wrist. Her grip was weak, but steady. You've already got strength, Kale, talent or not. You've kept us alive. Yeah, Sarah piped up, grinning through hollow cheeks. You're already better than anyone in this dumb place. but I still hope you get something shiny." The word twisted like a knife. Shiny. He'd seen shiny in the distance, where real buildings stood tall and manna lamps gleamed like captured stars. Places he'd never touch. Not from here. Not without a miracle. "Shiny's for show," he said, standing. "I just want something that works." Elira smiled faintly. "Then that's what you'll get. You always find a way." He grabbed the cracked bucket by the door and slung it over his shoulder. "I'm heading to Salt Pier. I'll try to bring back something for dinner." Sarah jumped from the bed and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Bring back fish," she whispered fiercely. "And come back safe." "Always," he said, kissing the top of her head. He met his mother's eyes one last time, still proud, still believing, and stepped out. The door creaked open to the morning. Brinewatch sprawled before him, a maze of rusted tin and sagging rooftops, alleys that reeked of waste and wet salt. The sea growled in the distance, and the sky above was already turning white with heat. The door of the shack groaned behind him as Kyle stepped out into the thick morning air, already heavy with salt and the stink of brine. The breeze carried a damp chill, but it clung to his skin like sweat. Somewhere in the distance, gulls shrieked overhead, circling above the surf like scavengers waiting for something to die. He took a deep breath, regretted it, and started walking. Brinewatch greeted him like it always did, with rot and rust, and streets so narrow and warped they felt like veins winding through a corpse. The ground squelched underfoot, black volcanic soil slick from last night's drizzle. Shanties pressed close on either side, their tin roofs bowed and weeping. Grime streaked the walls, mold crept like ivy, and every alley whispered with the quiet hunger of people trying not to starve. Children scampered barefoot through the muck, laughing in brief spurts before vanishing behind a sagging wall or under a tarp. Their joy was brittle, too light to last long here. Kyle kept his head down and his eyes forward. He passed a man curled against a wall, face hollow, limbs shaking in the early heat. Another leaned on a crutch, glaring at nothing. Brinewatch didn't kill quickly. It starved you slow. The closer he drew to the salt pier, the more the smells changed. The rot of garbage gave way to the sharper stench of blood and brine. Fish guts, sweat, iron, desperation. Salt Pier was Brinewatch's heart, if a dying body could be said to have one. Docks stretched like a cracked spine out into the sea, crooked and barnacle-bitten. Warehouses loomed along the coast, some government-marked, most gang-owned, and the whole place thrummed with noise. Boats creaked in their moorings, workers shouted over each other, and somewhere deeper in the maze of sheds and stalls, a gang enforcer barked orders too loud for a conversation, but too far for a fight. Kyle threaded through the crowd, careful not to bump shoulders or make eye contact. His boots slipped once on a slick plank, and he caught himself against a crate stacked high with dead fish. They stared up at him, glassy-eyed and silver-scaled, fresh from the deep and already starting to rot. He scanned the docks. Torv would be here somewhere. He always was. Near the end of the pier, Kyle spotted him. Thick-necked, wide-chested, arms like beams of dockwood, bellowing at a hauler who dared to stop mid-shift. Torv's face looked carved from gristle, his sunburnt skin leathered and lined. Kyle waited until the yelling ended, then stepped up. "Torv," he said, steady despite the knot in his gut. "Need work. Anything. Just need enough for fish and firewood." Torv turned, eyes like storm glass as they swept over Kyle, his patched pants, his thin shoulders, the grim set of his jaw. For a moment, nothing. Then a grunt. Lucky you. One of mine busted his foot. Another's gone off to get drunk or die. I stopped caring which. He scratched at his stubble. Crates need moving from the docks to the cold shed. You know the drill. Do it fast. Don't break anything, and I'll toss you some drip. Kyle nodded, already moving. Thank you, sir. He didn't wait for more. Just headed for the boats and the crates waiting like burdens in the sun. The first one was heavy. Gutted fish packed tight in ice and wrapped in netting. The chill bit into his arms as he hefted it, wet wood digging into raw palms. He staggered under the weight, found his rhythm, and pushed forward. 8 hours later. Kyle's back screamed with every lift. His shoulders burned, his palms bled. The crates didn't stop, and neither did he. He moved like a machine, load, walk, drop, repeat, until the world blurred into motion and pain. Sweat slicked his face and stung his eyes. His breath rasped with each haul, chest tight beneath the weight of salt, fish, and exhaustion. Around him, the salt pier pulsed on, creaking boats, curses shouted across planks, the clatter of bikes on shore paths, and always, always the quiet presence of armed eyes watching from the shadows. Brinewatch's rulers didn't wear uniforms. They wore scars and smirks and pistols on their hips. A shadow blocked the sun. Kyle looked up. That's enough, Torv said, his voice like gravel ground in seawater. No more work for the unawakened today. Kyle straightened, rubbing his raw palms on his trousers. I can keep going. You can, but it won't matter. Torv pulled a roll of waterproof bills from his belt. Rules are rules. 8 drips. That's it. Come back after your awakening. If the gods smile on you and you pull something useful, I'll have more for you. Maybe even a proper shift. Kyle took the roll. 8 drips. Just enough to keep his family alive another day. Thanks, he said quietly. Torv grunted, already turning to scream at another slacker. Kyle pocketed the bills and turned, only to hear his name rise over the din. Kyle! Malik jogged up, bright and reckless as ever, a bruise blooming across his cheekbone. At 17, he stood a head taller, all gangly limbs and wild orange curls that refused to obey gravity. His smile was crooked, his energy contagious. You should have told me you were coming today, he said, falling into step. What did the old bastard say? Kyle shrugged. No more work till after I awaken. Might get something steady, if I pull a decent talent. Malik scoffed. He's full of gill rot. I'll slip your name under the table, get you more shifts. Nah, Kyle said, shaking his head. Not worth the trouble. Malik grinned and gestured at his bruised face as he'd noticed Kale staring, but too polite to say anything. This? A girl from the Weave didn't appreciate my charm. Took a swing, missed my heart, hit my cheek. Kyle raised an eyebrow. Right. Sounds like you. Always, Malik said, laughing. Then he grew quieter, more sincere. Tomorrow's the day. You'll get something good, Kyle. I feel it. Kyle didn't answer right away. Can't be worse than pussy hands. Oi, low blow, Malik said, wiggling his fingers in mock agony. His talent, low-ranked and laughable, still hadn't earned him much more than cracked jokes and minor kitchen work. Malik! Torv's voice cracked across the dock like a whip. Duty calls, Malik said, patting Kyle on the shoulder. See you tomorrow, little bro. Kyle watched him jog off, then turned away, boots thudding on the soaked wood as he headed for the pier's edge. The noise of the salt pier faded behind him. Fishermen shouting, gulls screaming, waves gnawing at the wood. He stopped at a battered fish stall, its tarp roof fluttering in the sea breeze. 2 silver fish, fresh caught and lifeless, lay on a slick bed of seaweed. How much? He asked. 2 drips, the fishmonger said, eyeing him. He handed over the bills and took the wrapped bundle. The fish were cold in his hands, heavier than they looked. He turned toward a pile of broken crates behind the warehouse, wood warped and dark with salt. No one cared if he took it. The gang didn't waste energy policing scraps. Kyle gathered what he could, splintered planks, half-rotted slats, and bundled them tight. They'd smoke, but they'd burn. Enough for a fire, enough for a meal. The wind shifted, and Kyle paused, staring back at the pier, the water stretching beyond it into gray-blue infinity. Tomorrow, he'd awaken. Tomorrow, the world would decide what he was worth. And if it didn't, he'd decide for himself.